Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on episode 21 of the anime series ClassicaLoid. And this entire episode, oh man, it was so bittersweet. It was really tugging at my heartstrings the entirety, all the way through, because Schubert is such a non-presence in the life of Kanai and Sosuke and the ClassicaLoids. I mean, it's a shame that he is actually kind of sort of running the house. He's running and keeping up with the upkeep of the manor house, and he doesn't even have a room of his own. He sleeps down on the couch, and the episode begins very much with him completing his daily routine. Everyone has gone to their, individual bedrooms, and they've gone to bed and everything, and he finally rests upon the couch in the little living room area. And he realizes, wait a minute, why don't I have a room? And then, of course, he makes the case. He tries to plead the case and gets very combative about it, about maybe using music even to try to bring about a means of winning himself a room, a placement that he can call his home and everything like that. There is one room, one storage closet kind of, that's falling apart. It's got a bunch of stuff jammed in there. I loved, by the way, the old school sort of, jukebox that was in there. That, of course, then gets transformed into the bits and bobs of a robot, the body of a robot, when Beethoven comes in and answers to that challenge of using the music and everything like that. And all the ClassicaLoids, with the exception of Schubert, can now command and control their music. So all of them are calling it forth, first Beethoven, then you got Mozart coming in like, let me use mine, because they're all challenging each other to clean the room. Liz follows, and then Chopin. Schubert is the only one who cannot even bring it forth, at all, one iota. And he's tried to make the case, but, how about we look at it from the point of view of people who have kept up with the manor house, people who are keeping this place livable and really, performing form and function to keep the place clean and to keep the laundry done, to keep the, dishes from building up and all this stuff. And everyone's like, oh, that's so lame, that's so meh, it's like, are you serious? Sosuke was pissing me off because he's like back talking like, oh man, that's nothing compared to everybody else. And Mozart's like, well, I gave Kanai a birthday celebration, and Beethoven, and everybody has something they're claiming is their claim to fame, in a sense, their right to ownership. Chopin's is really the only one who comes forth with an argument I can agree with. Hey, I'm paying rent. I'm owed a room because I'm actually paying for it, paying to stay here. So it's like, all right, whatever. And Schubert, I just felt so horrible, so bad for the guy, because he's completely unloved. I mean, he ends up just saying, forget it. I don't know what my place here is. And there's something so relatable to that idea of feeling alone in the world, feeling ignored, feeling like you don't matter to anyone. And that's kind of why the driving force behind my ever coming online and making videos, wanting to reach out to people with similar interests. That's kind of what the form and function of the beginnings of that was. And then every step of the way, anyone who ever shares their time with me, anyone who ever takes the time to watch a video and comment on it, I want you to know you matter to me. It's something that we're friends. We're on the same level. I love having the interaction, and I want you to know that we have these similar interests. Whenever I make a post on Facebook, sometimes it's ranting, sometimes it's comedic, sometimes it's, just an observation, whatever it is. Sometimes I'm talking about an anime or a movie or whatever, and it's mostly to let you know, if you've ever felt these things, you're not alone. We're none of us are alone. We don't have to be. And, that doesn't necessarily answer to the grand romantic idea of finding that special someone, but you don't necessarily always need that, as long as you know that there are people out there who can relate to you. And Schubert is bottom of the barrel. He doesn't have anyone like that can equate that for himself. I mean, he's pretty much brought to the idea of contemplating suicide. He goes back to the Ark building, hoping maybe he can try to gain some perspective from Baksama, and there you have Berezovska and Tchaikovsky and everything like that, and he's standing in the lobby as they're coming back into the building, and they're like listing off all the ClassicaLoids. Well, there's nothing really to report. There's nothing special. Are we missing anyone? Because they haven't mentioned Schubert. He's standing right there. They haven't mentioned him. They don't remember him. So he ends up at the rooftop overlooking the cityscape, and he's about to take the plunge, man. He's like, why even bother? I'm not going to be able to find myself. I'm not going to find a reason for being. I can't find my purpose. I can't summon music. I don't know what I'm even, why I was brought into existence. And then that effing kite, that kite that has to be remote piloted by Kanai's father. He must be observing things from afar, because that kite brings him and drops him right in the heart of what I can only assume to be an American city, maybe like the slums of New York, Brooklyn or something. There's some Japanglish going on there, and it's somewhat comedic. There's it's supposed to say apologies, but the guy says apologize, you don't got no apologize for me. And that was somewhat comical, but Schubert makes the observation, whether you're completely ignored or you're completely pushed around, it's going to hurt either way. Either it hurts your pride, your emotions, or it hurts you physically. And then he runs into Kanai's pops, and this guy's talking all about self-indulgence, but not in the sense of doing things devil may care, not doing things on the breeze of whim and getting yourself hurt or in trouble, but following your heart. And he uses this analogy pointing to an avocado. He's ordered from this guy an avocado, roasted or something. I don't know exactly how it was prepared, but it's on a stick, fried maybe, who knows. And he's talking about, it was kind of just my own indulgence that I even created you ClassicaLoids to begin with. It was something I was following my curiosity, my design, my passions, my heart. And I created you all. And maybe now it's time for you to kind of indulge yourself. Find your own purpose, but find it for yourself. Don't find it through everyone else. Don't, sort of make the sum of your existence be based on what other people's expectations are. And at first, this doesn't really sink in to Schubert. He wakes up the next morning and the guy wants money, and Kanai's pops completely vacated the area. And he's like, could you pay the bill for me? And he's about to get killed. He's about to get mauled by an army of thuggies. And there's that effing kite again to save his ass, and it brings him back to Kanai's manor house during a typhoon of all things, where they're up trying to repair the leaky ceiling and everything. And finally, he's reached the turning point. He's going to stand up for himself, and he's going to summon forth the music that we've so desperately wanted to see, much as I have touched upon and discussed time and time again. These last handful of episodes have been about getting the ClassicaLoids to be able to evolve and grow up and mature and be able to call forth their music with a purpose, without there being a lack of control, which is what we've seen up until this point. And so this is the journey of revelation that Schubert has been on. And he's able to manifest his music without having it have to be the sadness, the depressing nature of this being completely ignored and having no place in life, without it having to be as a result of trying to impress his senpai, Beethoven. He calls this forth. And suddenly, because you've been given that insight that he liked to put poetry to music, mix and match, well, the modern equivalent of that is hip-hop, is rap. I'm not that big a fan of rap, I have to admit, but I was actually kind of smiling through the entirety of his sort of rap performance, where he's taken every one of the ClassicaLoids, and as well as Kanai and Sosuke, down a peg. He's putting them all in their place and letting them each know individually, this is what you amount to. This is what you've been amounting to. I've put my heart and soul into keeping this house together, into keeping our lives moving and fluid. And, it's been a thankless job, and I've gotten no respect. Rodney Dangerfield, I got no respect, So he's just tearing them all down one by one and creating this graffiti art out of them. He's like transforming them into this graffiti art, and then everything turns into like a weird Parappa the Rappa sort of like video where they're all like 2D floppy animation and everything, and the song's continuing and all this stuff. He didn't have anything to say about Sosuke, by the way. He turned the tables on Sosuke like, what are you? You're just the tool. You're nobody. You got a loud mouth, and that's about all. And that's what I was thinking throughout the course of this episode about Sosuke. I was like, shut the hell up. Every time he'd open his mouth. And so by the end, Schubert does finally align a sense of self-worth. And he's decided to go ahead and actually indulge himself, go out and have fun. Mozart has done this. Beats has done this. They've all done this one time or another. And it's finally Schubert's time to shine. I had kind of hoped, akin to one of the discussions I had with one of you guys back and forth in the comments, and I think I mentioned in a previous video as well, that maybe some level of the public performances that would go on in sort of worship or admiration of Schubert might have been one of those turning the tide, table turning sort of aspects to bring that awareness of he actually was appreciated in this world, in this living, breathing world, for his art, for his music, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the episode pretty much equated to that without actually implanting that aspect of it, which is kind of a shame. But I like that the turning point touched upon, once again, the grand enigma, the grand tapestry of the lore, the mythology of this series by itself, the creation of the ClassicaLoids, what Schubert really meant in the equation of that. Once again, calling back on his memory of Kanai's father stealing away in the night with Beethoven and Mozart, and wondering why he wasn't one of the chosen ones. It was just something Kanai's father did on a whim. At the time, he said, Beats and Mozart were the most ready, air quotes. Incubated wise, I don't know. It's really left to speculation what he meant by that. But it was his indulgence to take maybe his favorite two of them all, or something like that, at the time. And it was really just about the journey of Schubert finding himself and finding a level of self-worth and realizing he should not live out his existence based on whether he has worth in others, appraisals of him. He's got to believe in himself and love himself and love who he is before ever really going out and experiencing life, because you're just going to be crapped on every other turn, and there are going to be people who come after you and diss you and don't want anything to do with you, and life can be a lonely existence. But if you find an equilibrium in your own mind of appreciation and being thankful and grateful for who you are and the talents you have and the people you have around you, the things you can do in your life. I mean, you can be on sort of maybe not the happiest person in the world, but you can be on a better path. And that's the path Schubert needed to find. And I love that he did. And, then we find out they actually went ahead and cleaned up that room for him. And he doesn't want it. He's fine sleeping on the couch, devil may care. They throw him out, and he's all apologetic. Complete 180 turn back to where Schubert was at the beginning. I'm sorry, I got carried away and everything like that. Oh man, it was actually just a hilarious, episode. I love the whole idea. The whole hook of his rap, by the way. Avocado arigato, Oh man, just the madcap nature of this series, and yet it's so grounded in its heart and its the themes of the stories and the realizations of the characters, who these people, who the ClassicaLoids were really based on in the real world. I just love it all. I love the marriage of all that stuff. And even if I'm not a hip-hop fan personally, it's not personally my taste. I like some of it, but not all of it. I did think it was kind of hilarious, all the cursing and then just tearing down everybody that Schubert put into effect, only to have it turn table on him again by the end, and he gets thrown out, and he's apologizing to them all. Well, hopefully he actually does get the room now, though. At least that would be some comfort, some silver lining. And then, of course, the next episode will be all dedicated to Beethoven and his obsession, I guess, with coffee. Somebody mentioned this in the comments of my previous episode discussion video, and I completely had slipped my mind. But I guess, maybe they put two PVs together, and it was kind of misleading that you thought that was going to be part of this episode, but it's actually going to be the next episode. any more depth and background we can get on Beethoven, whether for hilarity's sake or awareness to his real-world self, I'm all for it. And yeah, it's just a shame that we're rounding down to the last handful of episodes for this series. I'm really going to miss it. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 21 of ClassicaLoid. If you've seen it as well, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you got a kick out of it, if you felt, you know, very bad and moved for Schubert as I did, and you know, just sort of laughed along with his finally finding himself in the rap artist rap battle sense, parappa the rap, the whole 9 yards of all of that. And yeah, whatever your thoughts were, love it or hate it, love having that conversation. Otherwise, it'll be pretty much it for me on this. If this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.